welcome to the Built on Air podcast, the variety show for all things Airtable. Each episode, we cover 4 different segments. It's always fresh and different and lots of fun while you get the insider info on all things Airtable. Our hosts and guests are some of the most senior experts in the Airtable community. Join us live each week on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern and join our active community at BuiltOnAir.com/join. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor, OnToAir.com. Any business running on Airtable gets the value that Airtable has, but also needs a few more functions to complete their operations. That's where OnToAir comes in. It's a suite of tools for any business running on Airtable to maximize your operations efficiencies and automations. One customer, John, states that OnToAir enables his business to function properly without having to think about building their own software, and that is pretty invaluable. The OnToAir Airtable apps are amazing, and we use them often and are very happy with the results. So join John and hundreds more customers and take your Airtable to the next level with OnToAir. Sign up today with promo code BuiltOnAir for a 10% discount. Check them out at ontoair.com. And now let's check out today's episode and see what we built on air. Welcome to the Built on Air podcast. This is season 9, episode 8, coming to you live on this Tuesday. Glad to be with you. I missed last week, so it's good to be back. But thanks to Alli and Camille, who had a great episode last week, and maybe we'll do that more often where I'm not there. So I think people enjoyed that one more. So we will keep that up. So today's episode, we have again with us Alli. Hello, Alli.
Hello.
Good to have you back. And we have a special, not her first time on the show, but Hannah Wigington is with us again. Hello, Hannah.
Hello.
Thanks for jumping on with us.
Glad to be here.
Neil couldn't make it with us today, so we're always happy to have new faces with us. So Hannah will be sharing some cool stuff that she's built with us later in the episode. So the Built on Air podcast is a live show where we go through 4 different segments where we talk about all things Airtable. Quickly run through the agenda for today. We always start off with Round the Bases, where we talk about what's going on in the Airtable communities and keep you up to date on everything new. Then we'll do a spotlight on our primary sponsor, OnToAir. We'll then do an Automate Create, where Hannah will show a new app, a new base that she's built and shared with the community. And then Alli's going to go through the Page Designer, and we'll learn all about how to use the Page Designer app for your bases. Another spotlight on our community, and then we'll end it with a scripting time, going through a script and how we can use to create child linked records. So with that, we will go to Round the Bases. We always like to start off with the Airtables community and see what's going on. And they've been pretty consistent at the end of each month, giving an overview of what's new feature-wise for the last month. So for the month of October, looks like they only listed 4 different things, some of them small, some of them big. So anybody want to tackle any of the big features that got added? This one's probably the biggest.
Filtering, yes.
We did.
That's very exciting. It makes for a lot less workarounds when you're trying to filter multiple things. That is a big deal. I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, I always like when I see core functionality of Airtable improving. My preference is there's a lot that they can fix there instead of kind of the new apps or add-ons or anything that are extensions. I like to see the core improving. So that's a big one. Some other smaller ones, they added linking to, so I guess Google Drive. I guess that's now available to everybody. Maybe it was in beta before. Because I thought that had been around for a while. Let me see. I think there's more in here. Oh, yeah, GitHub. So they added syncing to GitHub issues. And looks like that one's still in beta. So they just launched the beta there. This was one I didn't know about. I don't remember seeing this one. So this is for Slack messages within automations. So you can unfurl links, so it automatically like creates them as links if you have a link in your message that you're submitting to Slack. I assume that's what it means. I don't know exactly what unfurled means.
Like open up maybe, or something like that, like display more of it, I think.
Right, like shown in the preview, like how if you put in an Airtable link into Slack, it'll have like the big icon, or it's just like a black background.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah,
Gotcha.
I know what you're talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you can embed the link message. Okay.
Well, that's a cool feature.
That makes sense. Gotcha. All right. And then this was another one that I haven't played with this yet. Have either of you played with the being able to use formulas and rollups in the automations conditions?
I literally tried. I'm a little confused about this. I noticed somebody actually posted about this in the Airtable. Rebecca did, I think, and I was like, "What does that even mean?" Like, I didn't know that you couldn't already, but there was there's one thing that I think it's still a bug, that the dynamic variables that you can insert into the like steps after the trigger step of an automation, that still doesn't work for a formula or roll-up field or a linked record field either. It does work for a formula, my apologies. Just not a linked record or a lookup.
Gotcha.
But I don't understand what this one means.
Yeah, I went and looked, and I mean, you can definitely use a formula in a condition. So yeah, I kind of was the same. I thought you could always do that in your automation, unlocking so many new possibilities for your workflow, using the value in a condition.
Maybe they just never announced it and they thought this would be a good time to do it and make it public.
Yeah. Let's see here. I think it might be in the, okay, so I think it's just with the find record automation, so not the trigger. So I think that's confusing. So I think it's, if you're using the find records, I think there was an issue where you couldn't use formulas in your query to find records. So it looks like that. Although I don't know, I guess I don't.
Was it like a formula field wasn't available as a drop-down option?
As a drop-down, like in here, like in the conditions.
That's weird. I guess I never noticed that.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But it looks like,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it looks like, so this doesn't yet use the new filter, the advanced, conditional filtering. This is still kind of using the either or. So you can't do advanced filtering within these conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wonder if they'll update that at some point.
Yeah, this is the option that I want them to fix. This is more important to me than anything. Like, if they could, that dynamic option, if you try and insert after clicking that plus sign, a linked record field or a lookup, you only get the option to put the length of whatever the value is. Right. And that's not helpful at all.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's really odd, but you could do it with a formula, though. I don't think a formula always has worked, but I finally, for the very first time, got it to work yesterday.
Yeah. So, anyways, looks like there's some new functionality there. So a few new things, nothing like groundbreaking, although also in October, they apparently improved the underlying database enhancements and did some upgrades there. So maybe that's why there wasn't a ton of new announcements on functionality. So maybe next month there will be more. So that's what's new with Airtable for the month. We'll continue on. Okay, this is a post. Actually, this is Camille's originally. I was hoping she would be on to talk about this one, but this was posted last year. One of the issues I thought it'd be worth bringing up. One of the issues with the edit permissions, where you can say, you know, only certain people can edit these fields. She was basically saying, like, it would be nice if you could also, like, not allow anybody except for a script or an automation to update a field. So it's kind of a request for improvement, and people brought that up recently. So it came to my attention that would definitely be a nice feature to add, where you could lock down, you know, editing for anybody, but only scripts could, or automations could update a field. That currently is not supported.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've run into issues trying to use that option to set it when you set it to nobody, and it does allow you to say, you know, allow this to be modified through forms or automations, but the scripting app does not apparently qualify as an automation, so it doesn't allow you to do that. And then, like, I had one where I had the user that owns mini extensions. So, you know, when you connect with not just mini extensions, but like Zapier, even, it'll say so-and-so via API. Like, it still recognizes that user as the one that edited it. But even when that person is allowed to edit the field, the automation will fail. Like, if it's like you're trying to edit it through mini extensions or Zapier, in my experience, it doesn't work. It says insufficient permissions.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely room for improvement there, and we'll see if that's something they address. So good reminder of what you can and can't do with permissions. All right, moving on, we're going to go to the BuiltOnAir community. There's just one topic I thought was worth bringing up, also kind of in that same vein of automations versus scripts. So somebody asked, can you write a script or an app? Actually, this is specific to an app that is running kind of in the background, and like a process that can be updating. And both Camille and Bill responded to this saying, you know, scripts and apps, well, scripting is an app. Those only run within your browser. So those are not running behind the scenes. So automations do run behind the scenes. Those are running on Airtable's server infrastructure. So automations can be running all the time, but apps and scripts cannot. So just be aware of that if you think you can have kind of a script, because there are some apps that only run, that, like these were mentioning an app that they were hoping they could leave it running all the time to perform some kind of action. But it's only going to work if you have the browser open and that app open as well for it to be running in your browser. So good to be aware of that difference between scripts and automations. So, all right, moving on. This was coming from the Reddit community asking about switching from Monday.com to Airtable. Either of you use Monday.com?
I haven't.
Briefly.
Yeah. Anyway, so this was actually real quick. I'll throw up Jen's comment talking about the previous discussion. Airtable also limits what scripts you can run in automation. So yeah, there's limitations with scripts, time and memory, and the API calls that you can make there. So so yeah, that's a good point, Jen. So Monday.com is I don't know if it's a direct competitor. I've actually never used it, but you see the advertising everywhere. They're heavily advertising, especially on YouTube. I feel like every ad I see on YouTube is for Monday.com.
I mean, it is to me, when I used it, it was very task-based, which, while Airtable can do that and there are workarounds, Monday.com is more focused on the task, where Airtable is more of the database storing the information. And so to me, you can use Airtable for that, but Monday.com in some ways might be better if you really just want a task management only.
Yeah. So it's kind of more specific to project management. So it definitely doesn't have the extendability and customization that the Airtable has, which is what the comments in this thread suggested. Other people also suggest ClickUp, which I have used in the past, which is pretty powerful. So always interesting. There's so many alternatives out there. I always like to see how people use different tools and how they compare against Airtable. So I thought this was worth highlighting. But I think the consensus was most people were moving away from Monday to Airtable and felt like Airtable was a better fit for people's needs, which I always like to hear, being more on the Airtable side. So that was good. All right, moving on. Next community is Airtable community within Facebook. And this, I think, Hannah, you're on this thread. So the question is there a way to have multiple columns lock like the primary field is there? And so this I thought was good to bring up. So obviously some people didn't know about it. Some people in this group.
I've used Airtable for like 4 or 5 years, and I was like, what? I didn't even know you could do that.
Yep. So if you go right here and that.
Yeah.
Let me get it. Let's see here. There you go. Okay. So you have to be below the header. Yeah. So you see this bar here. If you drag it over, then it will freeze multiple. So then when you scroll, then 2 will stay frozen. So there's that bar right there that you can grab and stretch how many you want to freeze.
Yeah.
So, yep. So that's a cool feature. If you're not familiar with that, that is definitely worth highlighting. So I thought that was good to bring up.
Yeah, Jen. Yeah, I know. Me too.
All right. Looks like we got other power users that are learning new tricks
I'm glad
here.
it's not just me.
Very cool. So yeah, I thought that was cool to show up. So that comes in handy when you need to freeze it. Now, the better thing is if you could switch which field you want to display as your primary field, so that I've had it where, I will shrink this as small as I can get. And then the one that I really want isn't the primary key. And then you lock it for there. So you almost try to ignore that first one. I've done that before.
That is something I like about Coda. It allows you to choose what one you want as your display column. And you can also just hide any one that you want too. You could hide the display column and still have it existing, which is definitely a powerful feature.
Yeah, that would be nice if they could do that. So another wish list feature. All right, moving on. We'll go to Twitter. I actually have quite a few. Some of these are from the previous week that I had collected, but just wanted to highlight quickly. There's some cool. Zapier is very heavy Airtable users, and they're also great at content marketing. So if you want to check out their resources about Airtable, they have some good resources from their team on how they use Airtable. And so we're checking out if you're in a marketing team. Zapier is amazing at their content marketing. So highly worth reading and learning from them. Some resources. Here's one. Somebody's calling out their API. As cool as Airtable is, your API is very limited. We're having to use embedded Google Sheets because their API is better. And so just some discussion about the API and using it relative to So that's also some alternative ways to get around some limitations of their API. BaseQL is one. Sync Inc., who just renamed, I can't remember their new name, Sequin or something.
Sequin. Yeah, Sequin.
Yeah, so
I
that's
saw that
another
yesterday.
way to leverage those tools if you really need to use that. So just always like to see how people are talking about it. There's another thread coming up. This one I thought it was good. Somebody posted, "Why did no one tell me Airtable was the answer to everything?" I think we all feel the same way.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It's funny to see people come to that realization. See that often. Okay, this was one. So Hiten Shah is a big name. He's the founder of a couple companies, Kissmetrics, Crazy Egg. Runs now he's kind of big in the crypto world, and so very, very well known. Talking about the pricing model of Airtable and just getting frustrated with how expensive. So he's paying $10,000 a year for 42 collaborators, and talking about how, he doesn't even have that many employees using Airtable. So he's paying for external, consultants or anything like that using it. And I thought it was really interesting. There is some high level people, well-known people within the industry kind of adding on to that about, just not being happy with the pricing model. And so I wonder if, if these big names, well-known people are putting pressure on Airtable, if we'll see anything change on Airtable's front. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's interesting because they have, I've worked at a place where we use a nonprofit specific database, and it's expensive, and there's probably 3 or 4 users, and we pay probably $10,000 a year for that, but it's much more of an enterprise level, and they have all the features for that, where I think in some places Airtable, they have that pricing, but maybe not necessarily that all the in-depth features at that level.
Yeah. Yeah, and somebody actually who works at Airtable reached out, and let's see what their conversation. I guess he just said DM me, and then Coda jumps in on it and talks about their pricing model, which is different, and they actually address this. So I think Coda does have a pricing model.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They definitely do.
They only pay, you only charge for people who are actually like building and modifying the structure, not actually like editing the content.
Right. And even if they're like a read-only user, they could still get features that, like, if you're a read-only user in Airtable, you can't filter, you can't do anything. So that alone is a big game changer.
Yeah. So definitely some different approaches to this. We'll see if Airtable responds to this kind of pushback.
Well, it makes you wonder when they're going to do some changes after the survey they did months ago.
Yeah. We'll see if any of this works. So, trying to think if there's. I know Spreadsheet.com also has similar pricing model to Coda, so they kind of have that maker pricing model. So, if all the competitors are doing it, I wonder if Airtable may follow suit. But it seems to work for Salesforce. Salesforce is kind of more similar, but I also know people don't like that about Salesforce.
Yeah.
So maybe foreshadowing of things to come. All right. Let's see this one. So why is it so difficult to populate a select list from an existing column in another base in Airtable? It's so much simpler in Coda. So I think what they're saying is generating a drop-down list from like a linked record fields. Or what do you think she's talking about?
It could be anything. I mean, I think people get really confused between a linked record field and a single select or multiple select, because I guess you could use one or the other for many different situations. I don't know. There is some difficulty, like if you have commas in your source data, for example, then turning that from a text field into a single select or multi-select won't look very pretty. There's a lot of things to try and work around. I've got lots of little like weird data massaging practices that I do, but it's hard to kind of get around.
Yeah.
It depends on what the problem is.
It would be nice. Yeah. I think, being able to create dynamic drop downs. So apparently in Coda, you can do something like that. I haven't used that feature in Coda.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, cause you can have the options be a formula, which is cool. So it's like, go and filter what this linked record is linked to and show me the options from that single select on the other table. Yeah, that would be great.
That would be cool. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So yeah, add it to the feature list. Wish list. All right. Last one. This was a thread of this person created a CRM in Airtable for Twitter users, and in a tweet thread walks through how you would do that in Airtable. So that was cool. It's kind of a mini use case in just a couple tweets on how to build a tool like this using Zapier or Integromat, and obviously Twitter, and then Airtable to store all the data. So you can basically extract all of your followers using, I think he uses Integromat for the initial download and then Zapier for the ongoing new ones. So I guess that made it easier. Although Zapier with their new, I think Hannah, you mentioned the new Zapier feature to do syncing.
Yeah, it's transfer in Zapier now. So where Integromat has really always had where you can choose a date to start pulling information from in the past, you could do that in Integromat. Well, in Zapier, you could only start an automation from the day you start the automation or create the automation. But now with transfer, you can go back in the past and choose a date, so you can pull in information previously, which is really helpful if you're trying to start, basically if you want to put everything in Airtable for some reason from the past, so you can just pull it all in from previous and then go ahead and start the automation from here on out.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. I played with it. They do have support for Airtable in that. They don't have support for all of their connectors. So it's still the main ones. But a big one is Google Sheet to Airtable. That's what I kind of played with. And so that's a common one. There's a product out there that's kind of all they do is sync your Airtable to Google Sheets. And so this is another way you can do that. So yeah. So anyway, so you might not need to use Integromat if you're using Zapier. So you basically just download all your followers and then continually do them, and then using Airtable as your CRM to filter locations or whatnot. So kind of cool use case, and somebody showcasing how they are using that effectively in their marketing efforts. So that is all we had for round the bases. Let me bring up our images. So our next segment, I'm going to do a spotlight on OntoAir. OntoAir is an all-in-one toolkit to run your business on Airtable. It's a suite of apps that do a variety of things, from backing up your Airtable to making it easier to interact with your data in Airtable through our Amplify, to manage your schemas and your database structure, to building external forms using Jotform, and also our automation platform, OnTair Action. So full suite of tools that help you run your business. Check out ontair.com. There's also a BuiltOnAir promo code you can use, and we'll do that. Perfect question, Jen. Put that up there. Can you talk about Amplify? That's what we're going to do a spotlight on for today. So good timing. That was not planned. So with Amplify is a tool. Let me bring up our demo. So Amplify is a way to interact at the record level. You can think of it as a way to create views for a single record. And we have some big upgrades coming. And one of the features that I wanted to highlight, so we have you can create different widgets. You can navigate record to record. You can also, it has the full life cycle of creating new records, duplicating, deleting records. And then you can create views for each at the table level and set up different layouts for how you want to interact with your data. We have a variety of different column types to interact with your data, either just a standard record editor, so a standard form. You can also edit the linked record, so editing data in a linked table in line with the current record that you're looking at. We also have editors for editing Markdown or editing a long text field as HTML, or even JSON if you're using JSON. And we also have editors for interacting with your Google Docs. But the feature I wanted to showcase in this snippet is our search functionality. And this, Hannah actually was talking about this functionality and how it's almost like a mini app inside of Amplify. So I thought it would be worth highlighting. So if you click on this allows you to jump back and forth between records within the table, and you can configure your search to determine which records you want to display within this search portal. And you can also configure which records it can search across. So you can configure different records or different fields in your table that are searchable. So you can select multiple records and say, I want to be able to search within my notes field or the source and whatnot. And then you can also specify if this is for everyone or just me, or for all layouts across this table. So you can set up these search functionalities and configure them. And so now, instead of the normal search that will only search, well, this one will search across, but if you're looking at like a link table, you can only search for the primary key. So this one will now search anywhere within those searchable fields. You can find it and then just quickly double click on it. And then you instantly jump to the view, the layout for that specific record. So very powerful search functionality to be able to navigate across your data within Amplify.
Yeah, it's so much more. The Airtable search is super basic, and in Amplify, like it's like a Google search almost. I mean, if you have 25,000 records, trying to find that record based on the Airtable search is very difficult. And with the Amplify search, you can search inside a specific field or anything like that. And so it's a major advanced search function in Airtable.
Yep. Yeah, and you can specify which field you want as kind of your primary field to display at top. So this, going back to that comment before of showing different fields, you can do that within the search functionality. So check out Amplify. It's in the marketplace, or you can find it on ontair.com. More details. So love to check it out. And hopefully in the coming weeks, we have some big upgrades that will be very useful for power users of Airtable. So keep an eye out for updates coming to Amplify. Next, Hannah, if you want to get your screen ready, Hannah's going to take over the screen and walk us through her gift tracking app for Christmas.
It's Christmas time. Halloween's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready. Do I
You
have to
want to share your screen?
Yes. Let me get set up here. Maybe. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so this is a Christmas gift tracker in Airtable. So it's probably been a couple of years ago I created this because I mean, obviously it's Airtable and I can track everything that I need to, but when you're buying for 20 people, it gets to be a lot. And then you're wondering how much you spent, what you bought them, if you bought it in the first place. And so I created this tracker in Airtable. And so what I did was I created a record for each person. And in the record, I mean, you can put their picture and then have a linked record to a gifts table over here. And then in the person, I have a roll-up field that calculates how much I've spent on each gift. I have a budget. This is a formula field that calculates how much, the difference between the total spent and the budget. So it can kind of keep you on track of where you're going. And all of these are calculated from the gifts table. And of course, the prettiest view on this one is the gallery view because you can see everything. And so in this, what it has is the name. You can link it to the person that you're purchasing for. And then in the cost, this is where all the calculations are done, and the person table uses this cost field and also the purchase status. So while you might put in a cost here, but if you haven't purchased it, it won't calculate in there. So it's based on you've purchased it and you've spent the money. So it's also got a store drop down here for a single select field. And I made it that way. It just seemed easier than doing a linked record. Linked records that seemed a little too complicated for it. But then you can put your purchase date and a link. So I also have just different views grouped by when you purchased it and grouped by person. So you can kind of see here a sum. Now, one cool thing that I added this year, and I don't know why I didn't think of it before, is I added the web clipper app in the base. So what's neat about this is, say, for example, you go to Amazon and you see this cool little MP3 player that you want to get Jack, and you can use the web clipper to automatically grab all this information and just put it right into your base. So I set it up to where it will grab the page title. You can put in the person. It will grab the image from the page. So how this works is, I don't know if I can switch it over.
Yeah, I think you're just sharing the one.
Just one. Okay.
You share
that. Window. Okay.
There we go.
Can you see that? Okay.
Yep.
So in Amazon, basically what you can do is you use the web clipper once you've added it to your base, and you can click add new gift. And here it will automatically create the item title. So it pulls it from this information from the page title. Then you can select your person, the store that you're going to get it from. Okay, well, we haven't purchased it just yet. And then the picture, you can do multiple options, add screenshot. So you can select exactly what you want in there and it automatically adds it. This is genius. Like, I don't know why I haven't used a web clipper more often. And then you have some other options if you just want to select it. So it'll add it either way. And then we want to put in, okay, it's $22.99. And okay, this is a main gift. We're purchasing it here, and then a link. So then you go to add the record and show in Airtable. And there it is. Like, it's automatically added. So if you're shopping online, I mean, this is a great way to quickly add stuff to the list.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I've created some summary apps so can tell, okay, well, this calculates how much I've already spent this year. And that is too much. That is probably over budget. And how many purchased. And then, of course, a Christmas countdown. And this is up to date, people. So 53 days. We're less than 2 months away from Christmas. But those are, that's my Christmas template. It's really helps you keep track. I mean, it will help you save money because, you know, here we are, Charlie, we're over budget on him already. So no more presents for him this year in that. So.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Does it have it doesn't have, I know you can't with the web clipper, but do you have like a wish list feature where people can submit their wish list items?
So that is actually a great idea. Probably what would be good is to create a form and send it to everyone with just a few of the fields. So probably I would have the item and then a person. I mean, just to make it easy, and then the link, obviously, and then they could automatically add it. Could probably set it to limit the selection to not yet purchased, but definitely could send a link to everyone. You know, now that you say that, I had my son send me a text message with everything that he wanted, and I should have just had him put it all into the base here.
Let them do the work.
Yeah. If you want a gift, you have 2 weeks to send me your list, and if not, don't be surprised.
You're getting that broom.
Yeah. No, that's for little Lily. So he probably just wants the League of Legends gift card.
That works.
But yeah, that's the Christmas tracker. There's a free version and then a paid version if you want all the budgeting and the web clipper info.
Yeah. So I grew up in a big family. There's 8, I've got 7 siblings. So there's 8 kids in my family. And I was kind of known for trying to sneak a peek at gifts under the tree. And so my mom had to come up with a numbering system. And she had like random codes for each kid. So she would just write the code on there so you didn't know which kid it was for. And then she would on Christmas would have like the decoder piece of paper and like, this code is for this kid.
That's genius. That is very smart for the sneaky kid who always tries to shake the presents. And
that's right.
My husband's like that. Yeah. He's a smart mom. She figured you out.
Yeah. My kids are much better than I was. So they aren't tempted like that. Very cool. Thank you, Hannah, for sharing. And how can people find it?
So the best way is to, the link I'll share here, go to Gumroad and type in Airtable Christmas, and it should come up there. I don't have a link on my website yet.
Okay. We'll link it in our show notes, so we'll get it out there with our notes. So thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
All right, Alli, if you want to start getting ready to share your screen. So we'll move on to an app a day segment on Page Designer with Alli.
Absolutely. All right. Am I sharing?
Not yet.
What's going on? Oh, sorry guys. My computer, I tried to update to Big Sur last week, and my laptop never turned back on.
Oh no.
And so now I'm on a different machine, a backup machine, and I haven't enabled my screen recording capabilities for Chrome. So I'm doing that now. I have to leave and come back. I'm so sorry. I'll be right back.
We can come back. Want us to come back to you?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to scripting time. So I'm going to do a scripting time segment while Alli takes care of that. So we are going to look at, in the marketplace, they have scripts that are available. Mostly are provided by Airtable, but there are some third-party people generous enough to share their scripts. We're going to look at a script called Create Child Linked Records. So if you just click on Add an App and then go to the Scripts tab, and then you can automatically add a script into a scripting block or a scripting app, and it will bring it right up. And we're going to look through this code so we can learn about how it works and how we can use it. So what this does is it will automatically create linked records in a child table. So we see here the first thing that if we need configuration data from the user, we use this input.config, and you specify the title and description, and then you give it a list of items of data fields that you're essentially asking the user to select. And so there's different types of input fields that you can use. You can use a table that will automatically generate a drop-down list of the tables in the space. And then you can also do similar for a field, and you give it the name of the name that you gave the table in the parent table. So this, whatever you select in this child table, it will generate a list of fields for that table. So that will be the input. Then we'll have our configuration that we can then get from our settings object. And then you see here there's a function defined, so this doesn't get called until you want to call it. So you got to kind of go past that function. And then you see here, all we're doing is just calling that function. So we're using the await because it's asynchronous. And so now inside this function, we are extracting the fields from our settings so that now they're variables and we can use them as such. And then we're just making sure that our field type is a multi-record link. And the linked, so we're basically checking to make sure that we have the right type of field and it's a linked record to the parent field. So this is making sure that the linked table ID is the same as the parent table ID. And if it's not, then it generates a message and ends the function. So we're all done here. But if everything's good, we got the right field types, then we're going to continue on. And then now you'll see we're actually going to ask for more information. So we're going to ask for a record to use as our parent record. And we're going to, and basically we're not going to let them not select a record. So this while loop is basically gonna, if you exit out of it, it will ask you again. You have to ask for a parent record. So this while loop will just continue until you actually select a parent record, because you can just close out and not select one. So this is kind of forcing you to select a parent record. and you can't do anything else. And then it's just going to ask you for a number of how many new records you want to create that are associated with that parent. And it's going to loop through that number. So you're just asking it. It does, because it can only ask for text, it uses this parseInt function, which converts text to numerical values. So this is converting the text that you enter into a number. So you have to enter an actual number in that input. And then it can then use that as a numerical value and loop through that many times. And then it's just basically adding a new set of record data for the fields. And the only field that it's populating is that linked record, and it's linking it back to our parent record. So it's basically creating that many new records inside of this. And then this loop is to make sure if you added like 100 new records to be created, the Airtable function to create records can only do 50 at a time. So this max record per call is set to 50, which is what the current batch limit is. And so you have to splice it up that many times. If you've seen other episodes of this, there's a faster way where you can do this in one line that I typically like to do, but this works as well. And then it's done. So that's pretty much all it does. So you can kind of, like I always mention, like looking at these scripts is a great way to learn how to code, get familiar with the API that's available to you and how you might do certain things if you're just beginning your scripting experience. So let's try it out. So over here, we now have this running. And so we have to pick our parent table. I believe, so I'm going to pick a design project as my parent and then tasks as my child. So we're going to create multiple tasks for a design project. And this design project, that's the field that is in the tasks that links back to the design project. Now, this could probably be smarter because we can know, actually probably not at the input config. You don't know which, you can't filter this based off of the type. So if we were doing it down below, we could maybe be smarter about what fields are in there, but that is not available. So anyways, we now have it configured, and you only have to configure it once. It will remember these settings. So now we can run it. And so now it's asking us for a parent record. So if I go like this and exit out, that while loop continually asks us to add one. So you see here that while loop won't let me get around picking a parent. So let's do Gotham City. We're going to do that. And then here we determine, let's do 12, and then you hit next. And then now it's creating 12 child records associated with that parent record. So if we go to our Gotham, where is our Gotham? There it is. Okay, if we click on here, we should see a bunch of tasks, and they're all blank because we didn't add anything else. But now you see there's 12 tasks that got created. And typically you would take this as a starting template, and then maybe you want to populate it with default names for those tasks or something of that sort. So this is a great starting point for a pretty common use case of creating tasks for a project. That's pretty common anytime there's a new project. So maybe you want to convert this to an automation script that will automate it anytime there's a new project added to this table. This would be a good script to use as a starting template. So hopefully that's helpful to get you into the scripting world. Very powerful, opens up a whole new universe of types of applications that you can build with it. So we'll do that. And now we're going to skip back to Page Designer. Alli, if you want to, are you able to share your screen? Sorry, I didn't.
Hey,
Here I am. I'm back.
Back.
All right. Yes. Let's do this. We'll try again. And all right. Yay. Okay. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to do a very quick demo on one of my favorite apps, which is the Page Designer app. There's a lot of really awesome things about it, but there's also some pretty big cons to it, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. So I'm going to jump into my app sidebar here, and I'm going to add the Page Designer app into my dashboard. And it's going to first prompt me what table I want to use. And let's actually go with people. So this is just like a scrubbed version of an employee database. So I've got people, locations, etc. And the biggest thing that the way I like to explain Page Designer to people is one page in Page Designer is always going to correspond with one record. So one record on a table, and the values that are in that record or across that row or linked to it can be used in a Page Designer page. So just to demonstrate that really quickly, if I drop in this full name field, you've got all these awesome controls on the side to format however you want. And when I start tabbing through here, it's going to go down the list. So it started with, and actually if I go up to my very first view, you can choose which view you want this to be drawn off of as well. However, I have found that if you pick one that's down below, and then the next time you come back to your base, it always reverts to the top one, which I find really frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. But you can see here as I go down, we've got Archie, then we should have Kane, then Shandy, Chris, etc. So that's the basics of how you can see it only relates to one record at a time. So I could use this and I could, build a sheet for just one person at a time. And maybe that's helpful for some scenarios. Like I want to know what assets I've assigned that person, and I could print out a sheet at the time that they're onboarded of, here's your computer, your cell phone, etc. But let's actually go to a different example. And I'm going to go switch this to my locations sheet. And here's where things get really interesting. So let's say I want to create a phone list. So for each location, and they can actually print this out and have it at their desk, and they can know who else is at their location with them. You'll notice I said you can only use one row, one record at a time per page. However, you can also use anything that's linked to that location as well. So because I have all of my people linked to each record on this table, I can start by dragging in, let's actually leave that abbreviation at the top for each location. And then I like to make it in the center there. If I drag in my people linked record field, you'll notice I start to get a list here. And this is where things can get really, really cool. So first thing, I can go over to the side here, and I'll just start from the top. I can sort this list however I want. So let's say I want to sort it by department and then full name. I can filter this list however I want. So I can choose a view, and I'm going to go with all employees by location, because right now this is showing not just my active employees, but also my inactive, so people that have left. And then I can add all the columns that I want. So I want to add, let's put in like their extension. And this is something that I kind of wish there was a little more flexibility on. You'll notice this is just a text field, but I have extensions as a linked record field, and then I have this as a formula field that's just reading the linked record field, because this makes it really big and kind of clunky, and you can't get any formatting around that blue rectangle and how it displays. So I usually like to use formula fields in order to format this table a little bit nicer. And then we can also pull in, I don't know, let's put in their cell phone. This is awesome too. You can rename these columns however you want. And I know we're running low on time here, so this is my favorite thing I've figured out recently. And for each location, we've got a specific color because we have everything color coded. So I've just put in a little block, like just a little image for each location. And when I do that, I can drag that in as an image if I find where the color is. And I can drag that all the way across. And then if I say I want this to actually fill, and then send to back.
That's awesome. That's a cool trick.
Right? I like just figured this out. I mean, it wasn't, you couldn't do it before. It was, I think within the last year, they have advanced image options that they've released. And that is what allowed that to be able to be possible.
Wow. There's a lot you could do with that. That's awesome.
Right? It's super, super cool. And like the coolest part about it is when I start tabbing through, now I've got a different color for each location.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So everything's color coded.
I haven't used lists a lot in there either. That's really awesome to see.
It's super fun. I've had a lot of fun doing that. We actually and if you're lucky enough to have signed up for this beta to share the apps, the table syncing has allowed another really cool workaround. So I don't want to give all the employees access to this base because there's a lot of stuff, like birthdays and stuff in there that is private information. But I've got just the phone list, just the people and the locations. This is just a sample, so I didn't actually resync the locations table, but this I can share with the entire, with all the employees. I have this embedded right on the internet. And so they get their own, this is a master phone list of everybody. And then they've got a master location sheet with all the locations, phone numbers. And then that, just exactly what we were just working on. But it's
so did you embed the app on the website? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I did. I embedded the app and the base itself so that people can search through it as well. So I've got the apps. I can actually show that quickly. Can you see this screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If I just go into my staff directory. So we've got this all embedded in here. So that way somebody can search and try and find someone that they're looking for, and also just go in and print off their sheet.
Oh, that's really smart.
And what's so cool is this updates in real time. So I don't have to worry. The only thing I have to do is periodically come in and make sure that nothing like this is happening. So that's something I need to fix. I want to shorten up that title so that it doesn't run onto other lines, get too long, so that it, it's not smart enough to dynamically shrink and grow.
Yeah. Does it wrap?
It does. It wraps see how it's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see.
But I had to make the line height really small in order to fit everything. So it doesn't look very good when it wraps.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have a formula that cuts it off or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I have an override field that I'll go in and just try and shorten that title up a little bit. But yeah, there's just a little bit of some tips and tricks about Page Designer. I've got a ton, but I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's super powerful. What are some limitations of Page Designer?
Thank you. I said I would mention those. definitely. Okay, so my number one, and I think everyone's number one, is that you cannot automate this whatsoever. You can't click a button to grab that PDF and attach it to a record. That would be absolutely huge. I would use it for everything if you could do that. It would be awesome. Another thing, it's really hard to have multiple pages. You can kind of set it up so that it'll work for you on your particular computer and browser, but then that might not work well for the next person that tries to print it on a different browser. And additionally, I wish you could select more than one item at a time to drag around the page, because if you need to reformat one little section, you got to individually drag every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't group elements. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Very cool. All right, that's awesome. Thank you, Alli, for walking through Page Designer. It's probably the most popular app that's used by people, I would imagine. Maybe the scripting app is up there too, but definitely one that everybody should be familiar with and use. So Shay, thanks for being with us. And hopefully that was helpful for you, and you can go deeper into the Page Designer. So quickly, we'll end with just a plug. Join our BuiltOnAir community, BuiltOnAir.com. We have a newsletter. We also have a Slack community where there's people like Alli and Hannah and Shay and Jen and Rebecca, who all participated in today's show. They're all in the BuiltOnAir community. So amazing people doing amazing things. We'd love to have you join us at BuiltOnAir.com/join. One final comment from Jen. Very cool Page Designer feedback. So
Yeah.
with that, we're getting into November, our last month before we'll take December off. So we do have 4 more episodes that we'll bring to you the next 4 weeks. And we hope that you will join us next time on Built on Air. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, ontoair.com, and we will see you next time on the Built on Air podcast.